Hello, the Divine Code reading for February 22nd. We were in the chapter Precepts related to marriage, fornication, and divorce. Topic number 11. If one cohabits with an unmarried woman without the intention of marriage, whether or not the matter is known publicly, it does not render her married to him or give her the status of a Masora, that'd be a concubine. And it is mere licentiousness. Although such relations are clearly forbidden for Gentiles, it is Although such relations are not clearly forbidden for Gentiles, it is a repulsive act, even done in a temporary fashion. So there's no actual halakhic law against licentiousness, against casual sexual behavior. But it's still considered an improper activity. People should not do this. It's not part of the legal. It's not part of the law against adultery because it doesn't involve adultery, assuming the woman is not married. Rambam Laws of Marriage 1:1 writes that therefore the Torah was given at Sinai. That before the Torah was given at Sinai, a man would meet a woman on the street, give her money, and cohabit with her. Once the Torah was given, prostitution was forbidden. This implies that for Gentiles, however, it is not forbidden, and there was no express prohibition in Torah for Gentiles not to practice it. However, Ramban, on the verse in Genesis 2:24, and cling to his wife implies that this verse excludes clinging in an animalistic way of meeting a woman on the street and engaging in licentious relations with her, whether or not she asks for a payment. So whether or not she's receiving a payment would be irrelevant. According to Ramban, in the verse in Genesis, the main verse that we learn sexual morality from, that a man should cling to his wife would imply that he should not be clinging to anybody else. And that means having sexual relations with anybody else, but only with his wife. And therefore, any other practice, even if it's not explicitly prohibited, would still be implicitly prohibited. It would still be improper. From Ramban, it seems that although there is no express prohibition of prostitution for Gentiles, it is prohibited as an immoral act that conflicts with the command of the verse. Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg comments, A. Based on the words of Rambam cited above, it does not appear correct to conclude that prostitution is abhorrent and is forbidden for Gentiles. We also see that Judah acted in this way with Tamar, and it seems illogical that he would perform an act that was actually forbidden. Rambam's Guide to the Perplexed, Volume 3, Chapter 49, explains that the episode of Judah and Tamar was permitted. So the activity that Judah met the cloaked, the disguised Tamar, his daughter-in-law, on the street and engaged in prostitution with her, and that was somehow allowed at the time. The only prohibition stated in this regard is in the Torah addressed to the Jews. So within the Torah given at Sinai, the Jewish people were told not to engage in prostitution, but it was never explicitly commanded concerning non-Jews. As well, it is explained by Rambam Shorashim on Sefer HaMitzvot that a reason for the verse, Leviticus 19:29, do not profane your daughter or to prostitute her, so that not to defile the land and fill it with licentiousness, is that a Jew should not come to unknowingly marry a woman who was conceived by her father with a prostitute. But a Gentile, on the other hand, may marry his paternal half-sister, and therefore this reason cannot be included within one of the other Noahide prohibitions. However, the verse that is cited in the next topic, that's 1 Kings 14:24, and also prostitution was in the land, and they did the abominations of the nations. So this is speaking of during the times of the kings. That may have been during the time of Samuel or a little bit after Samuel. I'm sorry, Solomon, a little bit after around the time of Solomon, perhaps. The prostitution was in the land, and this was considered abominations. And that implies that the prostitution was counted as an abomination for the Gentiles, for the non-Jews. It is possible that it is only permitted for them, and this applies to a situation of Judah on a temporary fashion, but not for a woman to practice prostitution on a regular basis. But from Judah's statement in Genesis 38:23, needs to become disgraceful for us if it becomes known. It is implied that society at that time would have considered his actions as somewhat abhorrent. So at the time of Judah and Tamar, they did not want it to become publicly known that Judah had engaged with a prostitute, had involved himself with a prostitute, because it would have been an embarrassment for him. So there was a concept within society that prostitution was inappropriate, or at least not of the highest standards. In response, the author cites Tractate of Avodah Zarah 36b. Shem's court prohibited prostitution. However, Rashi on Genesis 38:24 and the Midrash there say that Tamar was sentenced to die only because she was the daughter of Shem, Melchizedek, a priest of God. See Rashi on Genesis 14:18, implying that others would not have been executed for this. So there's a question in the court of Shem prohibited prostitution to the extent that Shem had legal authority at that time, and Judah was under the legal. He submitted this question to the court of Shem, and it may have been that Tamar was held to a higher standard because she was the daughter of the high priest, the king and the high priest, Melchizedek, that'd be Shem. And because she's the daughter of the high priest, then she would have been held to a higher standard and would be executed, whereas somebody else may not have been executed. That's one theory. The Talmud states that Shem's decree was only one who cohabited with an idolater, which is what Judah assumed when he judged her, but did not apply to cohabitation with one who observed the Noahide commandments. See Tractate Sota 10a, that before having relations, Judah told Tamar told Judah, I am a convert, and Rashi explains there that this means I have abandoned idol worship. So we're told that Tamar forego idol worship, and therefore would have been a convert, or would have been a proper Noahide. And according to what's being said here, is that would have allowed the licentious behavior with Judah, whereas licentious behavior with an idol worshiper would not have been permitted for Judah. Is what's being said here. According to another opinion, debated in the Jerusalem Talmud, Tractate Kedushim 1:1, once a Gentile man cohabits with a Gentile prostitute, she becomes married to him, and all Gentile men who later cohabit with her commit adultery and are liable. In that opinion, which also holds that Gentiles cannot divorce, one would have to say that that because Judah held that he was permitted to have relations with a prostitute, this debate in the Jerusalem Talmud must only apply to the Torah law after Mount Sinai. So there's a question in the Jerusalem Talmud that the first man who involves himself with a prostitute, that prostitute becomes married to him, and that anybody else afterwards would be considered adultery. And that's not the normal halakha, but it's another opinion that's also stated here. The bottom line is that licentiousness, whether it's prostitution or just licentiousness, is considered an abhorrent, a very inappropriate activity, even if it's not a explicitly prohibited action in the Torah. It's nevertheless inappropriate behavior. Thank you.